Because I was playing that dumb Star Wars game, I started playing the companion app game.
Oh, stop. Just don't even... I want to hear about it. Shut up. Don't even...
All right, fine.
It is December 9th, 2015, and I am... Weird, I don't know how to do it.
And I'm alone.
It is December 9th, 2015, and this is Idle Thumbs... What is... I literally don't know how to do this. Jake, where are you? It is December 9th, 2015, and this is Idle Thumbs 240. I am Chris Remo.
And I'm Nick Breckon.
And that's all we are.
That's it. That's all we got.
Jake was on his way, I guess, and then realized that
he needed immediate medical attention.
Yes, that the cut on his thumb that he gave himself with a saw last night after attempting to saw a Christmas tree requires a tetanus shot, and his medical provider insisted that, having gone 20 years without such a shot, he better get his ass to Mars. So,
sorry, I'm just trying to imagine Jake sawing a Christmas tree right now. It's actually...
Well, he's sure not doing it right now.
Well,
he
yeah,
better
true.
Not be.
Or
Jake,
ever,
stop
or
sawing
ever
Christmas
again.
trees.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Can't help it. I just need to saw them.
Yeah, that's all I like. Wow. Yeah. Well,
so it's a weird cast.
It is a weird cast. We played weird things.
It's true. We both played one weird thing, and I challenge you. I'll give you $5 if you can flawlessly quote to me the name of the game from memory right now.
Can I just hand you the $5? And it's Dr. I want to say Dr. Caligari, but it's not.
Nope.
Dr. Strangelove. It starts with a doctor and ends with an emerald. And there's a tiger in the middle.
Yep. All right.
As they say.
Close enough. I'll give you $1.50. It is called Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger, and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, a Whirlwind Heist.
All right.
Yeah.
So I got halfway there.
Yeah. This is this just appeared a few days ago, like last week on Steam, as far as I know, without any warning. Although it may well have been something that was previously announced, and I just wasn't aware of it.
I don't think so. I think they had announced they were making a game. I don't think they had said anything about it. Yeah.
So this game was designed by William Pugh, who was the designer of the Stanley Parable, which was written by Davey Wreden, who didn't work on this game. But this is the first game from, I guess, a new small studio, I think 4 British people, called Crows.
Right.
And I guess it seems like this was maybe created kind of just as a promotional thing to sort of jumpstart their studio and say, hey, we exist and we made this. They call it a complimentary game.
And it is free.
And it is in fact free. And I guess they're just sort of trying to put out a cool thing that will...
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's totally cool.
I think it's a smart thing to do as a new studio to kind of like establish an identity, and then...
I don't know if I've ever seen quite this strategy, like
this
exact type of thing. I don't really think I've seen it deployed before.
I really wanted it to happen with oh my god, I'm blanking on his name right now. The Resident Evil creator.
Shinji Mikami.
Mikami. Their studio actually did something very similar when they were starting out at Bethesda, underneath Bethesda. They made a weird game where you play as a cockroach and you climb on walls and attack people's crotches, and it never got released.
Crotch roach.
But it's been I can't remember the name of it, but Mikami was in the game as a giant, because every human was a giant.
Was this ever like announced?
It was revealed that it exists, but it was never announced. They were using it to kind of like skill up on id Tech 5 at the time, and just kind of happened to make this weird game, and I think at the end of the day they didn't want to kind of spend the time to QA a weird game and finish it and polish it when they needed to start making a larger thing. But I was really I was really excited about the idea of like a weird thing coming out before probably more weird games from that studio. So
man,
yeah, I have Mikami's hat.
You have that crazy hat with all the stuff like pasted on it or whatever.
I've got a weird, like, I don't know how to describe what these hats are. It's a thing for sure. Like, just a hat it's ripped, and it just a baseball cap, and it's torn, and it has like love printed on, like, half of it, and then sort of like a weird logo that isn't a logo
it's like
for anything.
It's like a patchwork kind of punk patchwork thing.
Yeah, it's like exactly. And he signed it, intending it to be received by one of the female employees of Bethesda.
Instead,
who didn't want the hat. I swooped in and said, "Oh man, Mikami's hat, gotta have that
iconic hat."
So when he showed up,
bonus for Nick Breckon only.
When he showed up to the office in America for the first time, I was wearing the hat, and he saw me, and then mumbled something to his translator. And it turns out that then the translator, like, Mikami walks away, and then the translator stays and explains to me. He goes, "Oh, Mikami-san says that he is very surprised to see that you have his hat."
Oh my god!
So, yeah. Anyway,
I love it.
Got that. Didn't get Goldblum shoes, but I got Mikami's hat.
Well,
still have that hat.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm really glad that somehow this story emerged.
Anyway,
this couldn't
should probably talk about this game.
Yeah, this couldn't have anything less to do. With Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger, and the terribly cursed Emerald: a Whirlwind Heist.
So right off the bat,
this is like a free. Just to reiterate, it's a free 10 to 20 minute experience.
Yeah, people should play this game. But I mean, should we talk about 30 Flights of Loving? I guess. I mean, it's so Brendan Chung,
I want to say something about the trailer for this game, which is that you should watch the trailer on Steam or just wherever, because the trailer, as far as I can tell, doesn't even have any of the trailer has, I think, entirely unique narration that doesn't exist in the game at all.
Well, that was like the Stanley Parable. They did a huge trailer that was
and
its own.
And it has this amazing soundtrack that's really good and made me really jealous and made me want to make a game with a soundtrack like that.
Yeah.
And it's just an amazing trailer. It's really, really, really good. And then you play the game and it's kind of different. But also interesting.
Yeah.
The joke of the game maybe had worn itself out by the time I was done with it, but I really liked it.
It's
the conceit is that you're sort of
you load into a game,
you load up a game,
and then are immediately told that somebody else is playing the game that you were supposed to be playing.
Yeah, so you can't play it yet.
Yeah, and you can't play it yet, and so now you are sort of contracted
and also
by this.
All of the supposed employees who make the game work by messing with the lighting and doing all the things that happen to a player in the game are all on strike.
Right.
So you basically have to fill in.
Yeah. So
that's the premise of the game.
Yeah, you're walking around backstage of a theater, which is kind of representing the game world. They're using a theater as a metaphor for
the insides of the game, the workings of the game. Yeah.
And sort of going from room to room. And a lot of it's done through narration in the way that the Stanley Parable kind of did things. A lot of it's reactive to, you click on something, the narrative reacts. And yeah, it's clever. It's good. I think I was surprised. It felt so much like 30 Flights to me in a lot of ways. And I really enjoyed that. I don't know. I liked the brevity of it because, as you say, I think the premise kind of, gets it up to about 15 minutes, and then I think any more it would have really petered out. Yep. Yep. It felt just about the right length. I really enjoyed it. I don't know. I think
it's definitely part of an interesting trend of games that seems to be almost exclusively free or very cheap.
Yeah.
Or I guess ultimately extended in something bigger like the Stanley Parable was, but the Stanley Parable started as a free mod, which are games that are essentially entirely closed in and claustrophobic, whether or not they're 100% linear. The Stanley Parable is not necessarily a linear game per se, but it is very hemmed in.
Right.
And the places you can choose to go are very prescribed, even if you can choose one or the other. 30 Flights of Loving, which is completely, well, one would say linear experience as a player, but it's actually possibly the most non-linear game I've ever played, narratively speaking. And, this game, Dr. Langeskov, etc., Davey Wreden's more recent game, The Beginner's Guide. There are other games that are kind of like this. You could say something like Dear Esther and games like that are in this vein, but I wouldn't quite put them there because I don't think they have this. The quality I think that is interesting about this subgenre we're talking about is the extraordinary density of just constant interaction, or not interaction, but like constant reactivity or just stimuli being poked at you. Like everywhere. The point of the game is that it's very short, very dense, and just absolutely packed with stuff, whether or not you're the person instigating the stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's, I don't know, it's interesting. I mean,
well, and I think what's interesting about that to me is that, weirdly enough, I've been watching weirdly enough, he's the most whatever. I've been watching Spielberg movies lately, Chris. Interesting, fascinating. Such an undiscovered filmmaker. But something that I think Spielberg does really well, and good cinema does really well, is just rapid fire pacing. Just like every 30 seconds there is a new. I mean, Walt Disney called them gags. Like something that is like creating a stimuli response. And I think that these games kind of recreate that in a sense, like the feeling of watching just like a really like dense, like Pixar short or something, what I mean? Like they're getting it like that feeling, I think.
Right. I would hesitate to say that is sort of unqualified good filmmaking, but it is an avenue that is like potentially very successful.
Yes, that's true. Like Dear Esther is an example of a different type of feeling.
Or like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is a kind of film where you sort of marinate in a scene for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's funny you mentioned that actually because last week Sarah and I went to San Francisco Symphony's performance of Bugs Bunny at the Orchestra 2. Which is the latest in a series of a 25-year-long series of Warner Brothers productions that pairs an orchestra or other performing arts ensemble with, original Warner Brothers cartoons. And this is the fourth one. It started as Bugs Bunny on Broadway, and then it was something else, and then it was Bugs Bunny at the Symphony, and this is Bugs Bunny at the Symphony 2. And they've just done these, over the last quarter century. And actually the creative director of the series who came up with the whole thing actually conducts all of them. He just travels to the cities and is the conductor, and then speaks a lot about the history in between the segments, speaks about the history and just interesting facts. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Just completely amazing. I know I just said amazing 3 times, but the symphony is doing something that the original Warner Brothers Symphony Orchestra never had to do, which was play all of these things start to finish with no interruptions.
Oh, yeah.
They would record segments like 30 seconds at a time, and then the sound editor would edit them together to sound seamless, but they have to play these like 6-minute crazy things with tempo changes and scene changes and weird sounds and just sudden stops because of what happened, just straight through. And it really gives you an incredible amount of appreciation for both the craft of high density cartooning of the kind you're talking about, where there's just a gag constantly, just incredible economy of movement and animation, and also just the craft of musicianship and composition, and what the composers did to take what in a lot of cases was sort of classic European art music and then arrange it in a way that fit those cartoons. And it was a great example of that kind of, this sort of almost a similar approach to what you see in games like this, where there's just a really, really high density of stimulus and, in a lot of cases gags, because a lot of these games are sort of funny or sort of implicitly funny. Like 30 Flights of Loving is not a comedy, but it has rapid fire sort of gag nature of it. It is you're sort of delighted, like it's like
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. 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 Yes, Chris. 3 yeahs. No, I'm glad that these games are the games like this are still. I mean, I shouldn't say feasible because it's a free game, but I'm glad that there's merit in making something.
I mean, feasible is not the worst word because it might be the case that we're at a good point on the curve for stuff like this because
this is made in Unity, I think, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure based on the loader, it looked like it was, and so I'm.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I'm sure you're right. We're probably at a pretty good point on the development curve right now in terms of tools, both for game creation and asset creation, being accessible and kind of ambitious enough that a small team of people can make something impressive, but also at a pretty good point in terms of there being an audience of people receptive to something that isn't AAA level in terms of extreme, graphical density and stuff like that. And we have the distribution channel to get stuff like this out there. I suppose anything is feasible if you're willing to make no money on it and you can fund yourself.
Right.
So,
true.
One imagines they might have plans for something that will make them money.
Yeah.
And this was a way to help move them towards that goal.
Yeah. It's a good game. People should play it, I think.
So the game is called Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger, and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, a Whirlwind Heist. It is by Crows, and you can get it on Steam, steampowered.com. I found it because I saw it just show up in the new releases on a day when I couldn't play it. And the way I found it when I went back was just going to the free-to-play section on Steam. Yeah. And it is, in fact, fully free, not simply free to play.
Find it next to World of Tanks, World of Warplanes, World of Warships, and Doctor Something.
Yeah. All right. I played a game called Beglitched, which is not out yet. I played it by way of the IGF.
Oh. Okay.
And, the Independent Games Festival. And I was an audio judge on that last year. I don't know if I will be this year. We'll see. But I played a game called Beglitched because I was assigned to rate it, and it is really, really cool. It is the reason that it's, I think, interesting for me to talk about and think about right now on Idle Thumbs is because, in recent weeks I've been talking about my experience with Anno 2205 Asteroid Miner, which is a kind of color matching free-to-play game that, to me, is way more intentionally exploitative than... I think it crosses a line in terms of being sort of a good game design that then also has sort of a kind of an innovative business model. I think it crosses the line into something that is sort of fundamentally poorly pitched in that way, and sort of intentionally so, which makes it kind of worse. So the reason that is interesting is because this game, Beglitched, is actually a match 3 game. Or a match, however many...
Match.
Yeah, a match game. A game where you flip tiles around and they match. And it's not the same mechanic as Anno, but it's really interesting to play a game, it's sort of instructive to play a game in an era of simple puzzle games that are designed to bilk you out of money and be just as consumable as possible, right? So Beglitched is a matching game with it calls its aesthetic cyberpunk, which is pretty clever.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's you might be able to infer what it's like from that adjective because it's such a good one. But it's like you're inside a computer and you're sort of hacking through networks, but everything has bright pastel colors and the enemies are sort of bunnies and ducks and stuff like that. And it's hard, but it is hard in a way that requires you to actually puzzle through things and remember the properties of how this world works and plan a few moves ahead and balance variable, balance various risk and reward factors. It plays like a a mashup of Bejeweled and Battleship.
Oh wow!
Yeah, in the sense that a game, around there's sort of an overworld where you're traversing computer networks and using logical deduction to figure out how to avoid mines and how to get to the exit. And then on that overworld, you will encounter enemies, sort of JRPG style, where you will run into one of them, on the map there, and then you'll go into this matching game, and you fight against them, and they exist as a sprite on your board, and they move from, depending on what kind of enemy they are, they move from tile to tile. And some of them you can see and they move around. Some of them are invisible to you, and so you have to infer where they are. And some of them are invisible and they will stay on a given tile. Some of them are invisible and they'll move around every turn. And you can match tiles, but you can also spend energy to use tiles' abilities, which include things like bombs and a compass. And compasses will sort of point in the direction of where the enemy is. So, most enemies are invisible, and that is necessary to try and infer where they are. There are tiles that will refill your energy and all different things. The thing that is so interesting and strange about that, I got to stop saying interesting. I know people criticize us for using that word too much, and they're correct. You just cannot play it mindlessly. And I don't think in a video game, mindlessness is not always a bad thing. There definitely can be something good about getting into a state where you're just sort of operating subconsciously, or sort of just plowing forward. And then there's another aspect of the game that is providing the more substantial interest. But matching puzzle games very frequently, you're just kind of mindlessly clicking or swiping your thumb, and there's almost always something that's going to match, or it's so easy to see what's going to match that you don't, that the sort of the delta between the best move and a good enough move is like just not even worth bothering with. You might as well just keep doing the good enough move every time and you'll be fine. Whereas in this game, the enemy attacks back, and so you will lose if you don't take out the enemy before they take you out. And taking out the enemy requires this kind of battleship-like deduction of where they are, and careful usage of your finite resources. And it's just really impressive.
That's cool.
Yeah. I tried to find out when this game's coming out, and it looks like early 2016. They have a website. If you just search for Beglitched, exactly how it sounds, you will find it. They were greenlit on Steam. And I think it's a very, very, very small team. Possibly 2 people. I'm not sure. But it's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. It was a good counterpoint to some of the stuff I've been thinking about recently in terms of these kind of pseudo puzzle games. They're whatever you call these games, because they're not really puzzles, like puzzle action games. On the Anno Space Miner, oh man, are you playing Anno Space Miner?
No, I'm not. Okay. But I am playing Star Wars Battlefront Base Command.
I've never even heard of this.
So this is a free companion app, you might say, to Star Wars Battlefront.
It's companion app month on Idle Thumbs.
Yeah, I played the Battlefront beta. I kind of made my peace with the idea that I was going to purchase that game. And so I got this companion app knowing that there was some kind of strategy game attached to it. And I thought, I think it was 2 a.m. And I figured, whatever, it's this or another crossword puzzle. I guess it'll be this. And so I started playing this thing. It's actually pretty interesting. I like it. I'm sure that it's a clone of something.
So what is it?
So it is
tell me the name of it again.
It's called Star Wars Battlefront Base Command. I mean, it's basically, if you download the Star Wars Battlefront companion app, it is actually one component of that app.
Oh, man.
So
the companion app is like...
The companion app is like a portal.
Your mobile portal for all things Star Wars
Your space station for... Yeah. But so... So it's like the third tab on this launch pad. And it is a turn-based card game, I guess you could say, and kind of the way that it works is that there is a base in the center of. It's kind of essentially trying to ape like the feeling of like the Battle of Hoth or whatever from the movies, you know, or from the game itself. You play as the rebels, and in the center of the map you have a base, and then there are concentric circles, kind of expanding outwards from that base that represent the movement spaces.
It looks like they did it in sort of the same kind of board game style that Hitman Go, or something is in.
Yeah, it's kind of a reductive style, and then or minimalist, and then so there are 4 sectors, and then these circles that represent these sort of spaces that are expanding outwards from the base. And so what happens is that enemies spawn in from different points on the perimeter, and you play cards successively trying to take them out before they reach your base. It's actually fairly simple. But then, there are obviously a million complicating factors, and as you sort of progress through the campaign, so to speak, different enemy types. It is similar to Hitman Go in the sense of the progression, right? Different enemy types, different movement types, different abilities, and then basically the card game aspect is tied to the actual Battlefront game, which is actually the thing that I want to bring up in relation to Anno, right? So this game doesn't, and Battlefront itself doesn't have a free-to-play aspect, right? It doesn't actually charge you microtransactions or anything along those lines. But what it does do, and this is the thing that I found out while playing this game for 5 hours straight in the middle of the night, obsessively trying to complete it without having played a minute of Battlefront.
Wait, so what do you mean? I thought you would...
I purchased it, but I haven't really had time to play. Well, clearly I did, because I played 5 hours of this stupid thing. But it's a good game. But the thing that I learned is, not having played the main game, is that because the cards are essentially tied to the same sort of in-game currency.
But you played the beta of the main game.
I did play the beta.
Yeah, okay.
But as you play the main game, you unlock. So like if you, I don't know, use 20 grenades, now you have the ability to unlock a card in this game by spending 500 Battlefront points or whatever.
Right.
And the idea is that you would earn points in the app and then spend them on the game that you actually want to play. Whereas really what I learned is that I'm more enamored with the turn-based tactical phone game. And so that became a real problem when I didn't spend any time playing the shooter.
Yeah.
And just was trying to play these levels that are really hard without any of, like, I don't have Luke Skywalker because I haven't played 600 rounds of, whatever heroes versus villains, Battlefront, blah, blah. So I'm sitting there at like 4 a.m. trying to find the right deck combination in this card, and using like the starter cards to bring down like 15 like AT-ATs or whatever, and just grind it out basically. And I got all the way through every campaign to the very end, and then there's just this one that is literally impossible. I must have spent 2 hours.
5 hours. 2 of those 5 hours.
At which point I could have just been playing the shooter, unlocking all of the stuff that would let me beat this in 30 seconds. But the challenge, though, was more interesting to me.
Right.
And the game is more interesting. So I just sat there, and I kind of mindlessly ended up just like clicking on enemies with various cards, just trying to figure out any kind of strategy. Like I was just brute forcing the game.
The challenge is more interesting to me, so I'm throwing random cards.
Let me tell you, it was interesting for the first 40 minutes.
Right.
It became just, a World War I slugfest at a certain point.
That's a real bummer of a feeling, and I definitely got that with Asteroid Miner, where you sort of start to feel like, oh wow, this is actually This is hard in a way that's good, where I'm like, I love that this is sort of unforgiving to me, and just as someone who plays, just has been playing video games a long time, and I'm sure, I don't know, people who haven't as well, who knows, there is something really great about feeling like there's a wall in front of you that you can actually get through in like yourself.
Yep.
Like I am actually going to figure this out.
Right.
And then it's this, you get sort of crestfallen when you realize like, oh, that's not actually why this is hard.
Exactly.
The reason this is hard is because they're just trying to make it literally impossible, or as close to impossible as they can, so that I go do some other unrelated thing that has nothing to do with the actual challenge that I'm trying to complete. They just this challenge that they've created has a pure ulterior motive, and like that's the only reason it's hard. And if it were up to them, it would be like I would just be like bouncing back and forth in this perfectly calibrated like marketing
synergistic
dream.
Beautiful. I mean, then there's the next step for me, which is, well, screw them. I'm going to figure it out and just do it. And then the final step is just like
your life
6 a.m. like just red eyed like I hate everything. Why did I do this to myself?
Nobody wins.
They
don't get their synergy,
true.
and you
Darth
don't get
Vader
your
wins,
life.
Chris.
That's true.
The Emperor wins.
Good. The people who made this game lose.
Yes,
you
exactly.
lose. Meanwhile, the Emperor is just outside your window looking in. Good.
Yes, turning to the dark side with companion apps. Make the microtransaction, Luke. It's pretty much where we're at now. Anyway, it's a fun little game, but probably not worth the headache if you haven't played any of the actual.
Probably not worth the lack of the loss of
shooter.
Sleep. Yeah. All right. Well, you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take that break.
All right. Video game. This week's episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Caspter Mattress. When you have been up all night playing a mobile companion app and you've gotten no sleep and you're miserable, there is nothing better than to sink down into the the obsessively engineered American-made comfort and warmth of a Caspter mattress.
It's true, Chris.
Yeah.
Nothing better.
No. I mean, the better thing would be to get some sleep at a normal hour and have even more time in your Caspter mattress.
Exactly.
But if you're ruining your life anyway, why not, fall back into something better after that? If you go to Caspter.com/thumbs and use the code thumbs at checkout, you will get $50 towards any mattress purchase on their website. They come straight to your house in a box that will explode them out in amusing fashion. They're very affordably priced. $500 for a twin-size mattress, $950 for a king-size mattress. That is a great price for a really great mattress. And you get $50 off if you go to Caspter.com/thumbs and use the code thumbs. You can try it out and return it if you feel you need to. I don't suspect you will feel you need to, but that is how they do it, because they're that confident. Caspter.com/thumbs and the code thumbs for your post-companion app recharging needs. Thanks, Caspter. Video game. This episode of Idle Thumbs is also brought to you by a returning sponsor, Shari's Berries. It is a holiday time, which means it's time.
Berries.
It's time for berries. That is true. And if you go to berries.com, that's BERRIES.com, you can click that microphone in the top right, type in thumbs, and you will get all kinds of deals. They do it really, it's a really cool thing. You put that in there, and then just your discount options populate the page. You can get freshly dipped strawberries, starting at just $19.99. That is 40% off. And you can double them for just $10 more.
Wow.
Yeah, double the berries for only $10. They got
have a
dark
berry
chocolate.
Christmas.
I will have a berry Merry Christmas.
Good.
Yep. When you're up playing your companion app,
exactly.
And
yes,
you're just,
on Christmas Eve,
and,
when Santa comes a calling, but you're busy playing Star Wars Battlefront.
When you're malnourishing yourself, having gotten no sleep because of your companion app, these berries, these Shari's berries,
they will sustain me.
They will sustain you.
Yeah.
With just huge freaking strawberries. They are big, dipped in dark white and milk chocolate. And if you go to berries.com, click that microphone and type in thumbs, you can get 40% off your just huge berries, or double them for $10. Also, if you know of any other friends who are holed up in their houses with companion apps,
right? Any other prisoners?
Why not brighten their life? With some berries.
Do them a favor.
Yep. Berries.com. Click that microphone. Enter thumbs. Thanks, Shari's Berries.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for keeping Nick Breckon alive.
Yeah, thank you.
Video game.
Actually, speaking of eating berries and staying alive, I'm playing a lot of Don't Starve Together.
Oh man, okay.
Which so that is the multiplayer version of Don't Starve, which is itself a roguelike that came out quite a while ago, actually.
Yeah, several years ago. That game has been a sort of perennial success for Clay, which is the studio that made it.
Yeah, and I guess I won't really describe the game so much because I'm sure people have heard of it at this point. It's like a systems-driven survival game. Yeah, it's got a sort of unique flavor to it, and you kind of run around and try not to starve. You pick up things on the ground and build a little base, and et cetera, et cetera. But the thing that I really am enjoying about Don't Starve Together is that so playing the single player version of this game, I kind of hit a curve on it where I realized what the point of the game was. Collected a bunch of stuff, kind of explored, died a few times, resurrected a few times, but didn't really see the kind of end game, in terms of like the games that I enjoy, I didn't really see what I was kind of going towards that would keep me playing. That's kind of a weird way of describing it, but in any case, whereas with Don't Starve Together, and I guess I can explain it backwards, the thing that I really enjoy about this game is that it has the feeling of playing like a multiplayer Diablo game where I'm playing with my girlfriend Janelle, and it's kind of a really, just a relaxing kind of activity that we're doing, like occasionally, like 30 minutes of time, we'll just kind of walk around this world and like kind of the other thing that they've done is they've built up the just the amount of things that you can build out of.
Hold on, go back to the Diablo thing. In what way is it like playing multiplayer Diablo?
Well, the game is already a little bit like Diablo, right? It's procedurally generated. There's a new seed every time you die. You're essentially always playing in hardcore mode. If you die, you're starting the entire world over. The world regenerates. And you're clicking on various resources around the world to collect. To collect things and then turn them into more complex machines and farms and things that can kind of sustain you, because the game is constantly trying to kill you through starvation. Obviously, don't starve. So the thing that feels very Diablo to me in multiplayer as opposed to single player. Well, one, I never really played Diablo single player, so I guess that's it. But also just the feeling of kind of that Diablo-esque world map, seeing the icons on them, communicating with the person I'm playing with and saying, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to go back to town and kind of like, do a couple of things, and you go out and like kill a few guys or do whatever. Just this like sort of like passive cooperation, I guess. That's the thing that I really enjoyed about Diablo is it's kind of that like sort of like flow state kind of game, right? Where you're just sort of passively doing things. Mm-hmm. And then occasionally you'll hit a point, maybe every 5 or 10 minutes where you kind of need to come together and cooperate on something. And that's kind of what I like about this is it's something that is usually pretty passive, but then occasionally something will happen where like I'm stuck behind a wall of killer bees and like there's no way for me to escape. So I need, my partner to come down, rescue me, do a thing, like basically, risk wiping us from the entire server. And so these little spikes of excitement happen. And that's kind of the feeling that I got from playing Diablo, where, generally speaking, it's just kind of a, mowing down dudes and clicking on stuff. And then occasionally it's like, oh God,
where you really have to,
we have to kill that stupid boss. And oh man, we've died like 20 times. Right. This is horrible. And like the crazy things happened. And oh man. Okay. I don't know. I guess what I would say is if you played some Don't Starve and then kind of stepped away from it, that, you know, maybe Don't Starve Together is worth a look, because it feels like something that I'll probably come back to a decent amount. The nice thing is that when you shut down the game, it just sort of save states the whole world. And then, you know, when you shut down the server, it save states the whole server, which I guess is, I don't know, it's not surprising, but I think Don't Starve originally didn't really have a good save state thing. So anyway, it's cool.
Yeah,
I like it.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm also playing a thing that is not a game,
and yet you're playing it. So,
all right. So this is a weird thing that I'll just kind of get out of the way pretty quickly, but maybe it'll turn into a weird thing. So I embarked on a weird journey to discover my ancestry.
Whoa.
Yeah. I don't really remember why I decided to do this, but I did it. Okay. And I went on this website called Ancestry.com.
Yeah, I've seen their banner ads.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I actually think this is an ingenious game.
Okay.
What's really interesting about this is you go on the website, you subscribe for a month or whatever, you plug in your name, and then it immediately pops up a little like leaf and says, we have 4 hints about your ancestry or whatever based on your name, and you're just like one record that you've input. So then you click on the hint and it says, we found a census record for you that lists your father and your mother. And then you click on that record and it immediately attaches that to your profile as a piece of data. Now,
because when you click on it, you're confirming like, yes, this is me,
right,
or this is my family.
Yeah, this is correct. Okay. This is not some other person. So once you do that, it then says, would you like to automatically populate the next part of your family tree using that data for your mother and your father? And then when you hit yes, it just plugs them into your tree. Mm-hmm. So now they've got hints on them, and you can sort of successively add more and more pieces of data to each person as you're kind of unlocking your past.
Can you say like, I'm not sure if this is
you can say ignore or I'm not sure or whatever, and it'll just kind of keep it off to the side. But it becomes this addictive and fascinating game of like looking back 2-3 steps, finding some weird 1800s census record. The amazing thing is that they actually, when you find this stuff, they've stripped the data obviously and put it into their system, but then they also have the original scanned document. So you're looking at, original like 1880s, longhand census records. But then, and this is the weird like multiplayer like aspect to it, is that there are other people doing the same thing. And their trees, you actually can access as a piece of data as well. And then when you add their data, it just gloms that tree onto your tree. And so now you're just kind of creating this weird, like enmeshed history with other people. And it's just happening.
You're just Crusader Kingsing your...
Exactly. This is basically Crusader Kings without the like war layer to it. Right. Like you're just building... Right, exactly. So, you got
to dig up some kind of Hatfields and McCoys.
Oh man,
grudge.
So I dug up some stuff. So my great grandfather was apparently a milk bottler in Detroit, Michigan, and one night in I think 1905, he was on the street, and I'm reading this like newspaper article that had been attached to his historical record, and he was insulted by a German man walking down the street, then apparently returned the insult, at which point he was bludgeoned to death on the streets of Detroit.
What?
and the fascinating thing is...
What side of the family is that?
My mom's side.
So your mom's grandfather was killed to death on the street?
By a man named Martin, which is our family name. On the other side of her, on her other side.
Shit.
So there's now I'm like talking to my relatives and going like, is this actually like
crazy feud?
One side of the family just killing another guy, which is basically Crusader Kings, right? I mean, like this is just like the low rent, like poor Irish version of like a weird like video game that's being like unfurled as I also just kind of felt like, after playing like Her Story or games like this, right, where you're sort of slowly piecing together a story. but it's your own actual family history. It's fascinating.
That's amazing.
It's really, really good. Like you can take it so far back. Like there's a Ralph Breckon in 1610 in York that apparently existed.
Yeah.
The other side of that family was the McBains, who were like the Clan McBain in Scotland. There was a famous McBain who killed like 15 guys during some battle in the 1800s.
Wow.
Because he was 6'7", and I'm sure at the time most people were like 5 foot. Yeah. So this giant man killed 1 billion people with a claymore, and then you go further back, and apparently there was this thing that is almost like Duncan-esque, Duncan Fife-esque story of Sawney Bane, who in apparently the Dark Ages just decided he was kind of done living a civilized life and went to the ocean with his wife and lived in a cave and would just come out of the cave and kill people and then bring their bodies back to the cave. And apparently William, is it William VI? I think the King of Scotland at the time of Elizabeth. No, James I. I'm sorry. James I apparently personally led a group of 400 people to go find Sawney Bane and kill him.
Did they succeed?
Oh yeah, they succeeded. And they just went to that cave.
But he already had children who then eventually spawned Nick Breckon.
Apparently, yeah. They found this guy and his wife in a cave, and just like hundreds of skulls and weird.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
so you have a crazy serial murderer in your family.
Basically,
what year was? When was this? Oh, you said.
This is some legend of whatever that may or may not be entirely true, but probably has like some truth to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. It kind of crept up on me that this is actually a really smart game. Like they've designed this system in such a way that it's sort of feeding you info in really slow drips.
Yeah.
And allowing you to kind of feel like you're in a library actually researching this stuff, even though it's just
it's just
all
in a
digitally there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. My grandfather changed our family name to Remo. His name was Guayanone, and when he moved from Italy to the United States, he changed it because of like anti-Italian prejudice and so on. I mean, Remo is still an Italian name, but it's less aggressively Italian,
right?
And it would be really interesting. I don't know all that much about where that goes, but
So there was a point in my line where somebody had changed their name. Actually, I looked up my girlfriend's family line, and they didn't know much either. And I kind of did it before I went to their Thanksgiving dinner and kind of popped all this stuff on them and said, like, "Did you know this?" And they were completely destroyed by it. But yeah, I hit multiple points where names had changed.
Yeah.
And then I actually did real detective work and went on, the internet kind of off to the side and found, like, you basically, like, at a certain point you'll hit a brick wall and go, like, I can't go any further. But then just knowing what you already know, there are other sites and other things that you can search kind of manually, and then you can bring that information back to Ancestry.com, plug it in, and then get more. And so it actually turns into this weird thing of, like, actual sleuthing, which is, it's really fun.
That's awesome.
It's a good game.
No, that sounds great.
It's a good subscription MMO, which it kind of is. It's like $15 a month or something. But if you have any interest at all in that kind of stuff, I would actually kind of recommend it because it will delight your grandfather as well. And ahead of the holidays. At the head of the holidays, you need something to talk about. It will
delight your grandfather and the grandfather in you.
Right. Unless he was murdered.
All right. Well, here's you want to do some reader mail?
Sure.
Because here's a reader mail that sort of connects to I think is thematically resonant with this conversation. Andreas Philipson writes, "Dear Thumbs, I've listened to all of the Idle Thumbs episodes at least a couple of times. Try as I might, I can't seem to recall ever hearing about the lore behind Nick's alter ego, Nick Bredon. Yet every time I hear the name, it makes me smile. Please elaborate. Cheers from Sweden, Andreas F. NDS on the forums." This is the dumbest origin story imaginable.
Is it? I don't even know if I know it, Chris.
Oh my God. This is a thing that only Jake says, and he says it despite nobody else knowing what he's talking about.
Is it?
Yes. So, okay. So Nick Breckon, your start in the video game industry effectively came when I hired you for a job at Shack News, a website that I used to be the editor of and that you then worked at with me. And when I hired you, our boss, Steve Gibson, I think, or maybe it was me, I can't remember if it was me or Steve, who posted in Chatty, welcome to
I think it was Steve.
Nick Bredon.
Yeah, it was totally Steve.
And Jake thought that was hilarious. And Jake, that was it.
Jake 2000 thought that was hilarious.
It was in a little comment on a message board of a website 10 years ago. And
Weird.
Probably 10 people in the world would remember that this happened. If that. Yeah. Probably not even that. And
that is the case with so much information in my brain as related to Shack News.
Yeah.
You know? Ugh.
Yeah. So that it is basically not even an origin story. It is basically nothing.
Wow.
It is a fart of an origin story.
Yeah. I'm going to attach that to my ancestry record. Nick Breckon, change name to Nick Bredon, 2008.
It might even have been less than that, because I think the thing Steve typed was Nick wrote for websites such as Idle Thumbs, but he spelled it Idle the Ums. So it was idlethums.net. And I remember we were bummed that basically the 7 people who would have clicked on that to go to Idle Thumbs now didn't. And I think Nick Bredon might even have been just like a community member or something. I can't even remember. But it just dates back to a misspelling of your name from a community website.
Mom, why did our name change to Bredon? well, little.
There's this website.
There's this website called shacknews.com. Oh, God. That's actually the grossest thing about Ancestry is you realize when people look back and they're going to find everything about you because the internet now exists.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Yeah, you're not going to need Ancestry.com.
Because I found...
You're just going to need archive.org.
Yeah, the few things that I could deduce, right, that were scandalous, I found something in the 1700s where... I was just, kind of adding names mindlessly because it just at a certain point it just becomes kind of rote. And then
it also approximates the MMO experience in that way.
Yeah. And then I realized, oh my God, I just added this woman as the wife of this guy, but then her sister also married his. This is incest. This is what's happening right now. This is okay. And that's the extent of but now people will just read my live journal, and be very sad.
Yep. Yeah. It's gross. It's really gross. Yeah. I don't enjoy that. That's going to be a thing that all of us will have forever now.
Attach just Facebook, Nick Breckon's Facebook.
At least Facebook will probably continue to become so obscured and labyrinthine that there's just going to be no way anyone's going to be able to find any old I don't even know how you'd go about digging dirt on someone up. I'm sure you could, but it's so, that website is such just a catastrophe for me, at least for me at this point, that I don't even understand how you would dig things up. But Twitter and blogs and I mean, the photos of my great grandparents that I'm finding are these nicely composed sepia tone portraiture. What I mean, it's just going to be everybody's goofy face on Splash Mountain. I mean, it's going to be so weird. I was thinking about this recently because my mom always loved putting together photo albums and showing us old photos and stuff, and obviously everyone loves doing that to some degree, and but I was thinking how that's going to feel, or it won't feel different because people have no frame of comparison, but that'll just be a weird thing that's different about, people who were essentially born in the age of smartphones. There won't really be anything particularly special about, I mean, individual photos might still be special and be particularly memorable because they're good photos or that, whatever. But
that photo album that you found that's got 300 pictures of a mountain. That's just what your every Instagram is now. It's just
everyone's just have
everybody's got doubles
of every possible event and age and
why did you take this one? I don't know. I clicked the button. It's just everything. Yeah, just waste.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's super weird.
Anyway, let's see what other email we have here. Noel Barrett writes, "Hey Thumbs, new listener, loving the show. I've recently been playing a lot of 90s first-person shooter games lately, inspired by the Doom mixtape series by Liz Ryerson on YouTube." That's a good series. So I downloaded Heretic on Steam.
Oh, man.
Upon playing the vanilla Steam version of the game, I was shocked to find the controls exactly like those you were joking about in the Trash Can Sally episode. To move forward, you push the mouse forward, likewise backwards. The keyboard controls do the same thing with no strafing options I can see. I've been playing the game in the Doomsday engine, which allows me to use the correct FPS controls. In light of listeners playing a game with their own self-imposed challenges, I believe this could make its own meta challenge for the game. Thanks, Noel.
Man, that's crazy.
Or Noel, I'm not sure.
God, you know the one weird thing about Star Wars Battlefront is that the vehicle...
Is that you go forward by pushing forward with the mouse.
That's really weird.
2015.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You go forward by swiping forward on the companion app while playing the video game.
No, the space vehicles are controlled. I mean, whatever. Like, you can control them using a controller if you want to, but because you're typically playing most of the game with the mouse, when you jump into like an X-wing, you're playing with the mouse usually, unless you really go to the trouble. And it instantly took me back to playing like X-wing with a mouse and just sliding the mouse, like basically throwing the mouse at the wall, trying to get a turn radius going, and just like all of those weird, stupid things. You're just like, exactly. You're just slamming the mouse down, up and down. Like, why is this thing not moving? Yeah, that's basically. So it's really weird because like most of the game is this high profile like AAA shooter, and then I just instantly am taken back to because there's like, even like a nice cockpit view that you can pull up, and I just feel like, oh god, I'm just doing
classic Star Wars gameplay.
Just drop the frame rate to 4 frames per second, and it'll feel like I'm playing this on my Apple whatever. Yeah. It's pretty good.
Man, speaking of Star Wars cockpit experiences, I was at Disneyland this weekend. And, there's a new scene in Star Tours, the Star Wars simulator ride
for the movie.
It's actually really good.
Oh yeah,
they've gotten really, really good at using the using the motion of like that ride is like you're in a room and there's a screen and the screen is like you have 3D glasses and the screen is acting as the windshield essentially of your shuttle.
Yeah,
and the whole room rotates and vibrates around to simulate the motion, and it's like they've gotten really, really good at this point of making really convincing motion effects that are I don't know. It's just
somehow I got onto a portfolio page for somebody who had done camera work on that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. She had like a minute-long reel where she was kind of explaining how she did like the Hoth sequence, I guess, and
that is God. For as many times I've been on Star Tours, I've never seen the Hoth one.
Really? Oh man, I've
probably been on that ride a dozen times, and I've never gotten.
Janelle thinks it's rigged. She thinks that like if you do this one, then you never get this one. It's actually just a die roll, I think.
I think
people have broken it down. It's totally random, but
But no, I've just
I think I've gotten it once.
Unlucky, and I've just never gotten it.
Yeah, me too. And she was talking about how tricky it can be because your instinct is to just make the camera do crazy stuff, but there is a limit to what the simulator can do, and there's also a limit to what people can take, know. Yeah. And so actually, like, she's somebody that works at ILM doing, all kinds of other camera work on films and stuff. But then now being in that role, having to kind of like think about what that machine can do, think about what the way that people would react to it, and kind of design basically just a free cam, fly through, camera move. I don't know. It was really interesting. But yeah, that is a crazy thing, that simulator.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? So Alexander Schroeder writes, "Howdy thumbs. Given the topics of demos and unintended gameplay in the past few episodes, I thought I'd share a couple of my own stories in that vein, both for online racing games on the original Xbox. Probably my favorite demo ever was the one for MotoGP that came with the Xbox Live Starter Kit. It was a simplistic online demo with maybe 2 or 3 tracks, but totally captivating because you could always jump in and race against 15 players at any given time, which at the time was a new experience. However, as a grade school kid, I couldn't actually buy said game, so it wouldn't be until much later I'd buy myself a version of MotoGP on the 360 in an attempt to recapture the magic. It didn't work. Even with far more options of motorcycles, modes, and tracks, none of it mattered because no one was playing that particular game online. I ended up having more fun plugging in my old Xbox and playing that demo disc again, which, sure enough, still had plenty of players willing to do a few laps around Mugello, leading me to never play the full game again. That's crazy.
That's really crazy.
The demo may be gone with all original Xbox Online, but I always think back to it as an example of a demo feeling superior to the actual product.
Man, that happens so often.
I know, me too.
It actually just happened with Battlefront, and like they.
Oh, really? Playing the beta versus
the
full
beta
game?
was incredibly unbalanced, and it actually made it feel really interesting. Like the rebels lost every time, which is what happens in the movie. Now they've perfectly balanced it, and it just doesn't feel as interesting because the challenge, the insane challenge of that was so much more interesting than just kind of a perfectly balanced, like kind of, I have really very little agency in what happens, and they won this time. Demos are crazy and weird. Yeah. Oh man, it just reminds me of the Battlefield 1942 demo. Did you ever play that?
Probably.
Oh my god.
I mean, I played the full game. I don't know, but yeah.
If anybody has like a good story about that, I would love a reader mail on that, because that is the most memorable thing I can recall in terms of like a demo experience that essentially eclipsed almost most full multiplayer games. I think like oh man, what a singular like moment in time where like nothing like that existed, and it was just like a perfect version of it.
That's awesome. So he continues, as for unintended gameplay, that came from Project Gotham Racing 2, a fantastic racer all around that also marked the series' first foray into online. After getting my fill of single-player and normal online races, I've ended up becoming addicted to a player-invented mode that took over custom lobbies, cat and mouse. The idea was simple, players divided into teams of two, with one player of each team taking a supercar and the other a Mini Cooper. The goal for each team is to get your Mini, or mouse, across the finish line, while the cats, an odd mix of Porsches, Ferraris, and Koenigseggs, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, would try and keep the other teams from doing the same. The end result is a crazy game of bumper cars, with the supercars alternating between pushing their minis well past the normal top speeds and slamming the others into every wall they could. This proved to be so fun that the mode would be added to Project Gotham 3 and 4, with the former even getting the Mini Cooper DLC, despite every other car having a minimum top speed of 170 miles per hour, and the Mini having not that. Hope you enjoyed these tales of early days of online console gaming. Alex, Charleston, South Carolina.
That's really good.
Yep.
I'm really glad that they made that a mode.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing happened in the Halo series a lot, and was really great. Yeah. Let's see. In this vein, Jason Copland writes, alternative gaming experiences. Hi, Thumbs. The recent swath of nostalgia makes over alternative. I think there's a typo in here. Anyway. The recent swath of this reminds me of a related yet distinct play method
like a
I witnessed back in the day. Yeah. My friend and his sister both wanted to play through Final Fantasy VII when it dropped in the US. They didn't think it would be practical for them to each do their own playthrough, but this is amazing. But also found it difficult to coordinate enough time as high school students involved in difficult extracurriculars. When only one of them was available to play, they would continue solo, keeping notes of any important story beats to fill in the other later.
Oh, man.
They had the PlayStation connected to the VCR, ready with a blank tape, which then fed to the TV.
Oh my god!
All the important cutscenes were recorded, so the missing sibling could play catch-up by watching the previously on Final Fantasy VII and reading up on the notes. The pre-YouTube era was difficult indeed. I wonder if they have those old tapes anywhere. Thanks for the great podcast, Jason Copland, Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is truly incredible.
That is really, really good.
Yeah.
God, what a weird thing. Even better would have been if they had recorded like commentary. You know what I mean? Like, oh my goodness. Now I just want a game like that where you actually have to trade off and then communicate what has happened in order for the other person to progress.
There's like information that they need.
Yeah.
But but you're not going to know what information is required. You know, will be most useful to them. So you have to make a call.
And you only have a minute.
Yeah. Oh man, that would be an interesting mobile. You could do that on mobile.
Yeah, you could.
Because you could restrict. If each player had their own screen, you could intentionally restrict what they each see.
Yeah, like a Neptune's Pride.
Be an interesting sort of like play by email. You know, sort of like modern equivalent of a play by email game.
Yep.
Where you take yours and then you kind of like what was the game that everyone played for a while where you draw stuff?
Oh yeah, draw something or whatever. Yeah.
And then you have to describe. You know, the other person has to figure out what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's a cool idea. Also, I want to know if the Eris dies cutscene was played live or was replayed via VHS.
Wow, last time on.
Yeah. Man.
The future of internet memes and everything. Yeah.
Yep.
Jeez. God, it's weird that game is it's that they're remaking it, but then also like I had a weird thought in my head before this was announced, like how are they going to remake that game? Because it's like 50 hours long, and to remake it in like modern fidelity, I bet they're going to make it episodic, and then they announced that it was. So now you'll probably actually get a last time on Final Fantasy cutscene. Anyway,
man, speaking of sort of intensive remakes, the Double Fine is remaking Full Throttle.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for that.
But it's an entirely 2D game, so they just have to redraw all that hand animation.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They have to, I guess, trace it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet it's going to be beautiful, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is really exciting.
I'm really glad that
I'm so glad people will be able to buy it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that those basically like almost the entire full slate of those games are going to be available on modern platforms.
Because they're doing Day of the Tentacle.
Yeah.
Both Monkey Islands are available, even though I didn't think
Fandango's just remastered.
Very good special editions.
Yeah.
Grim Fandango. Yeah. It's good.
I'm really, really happy.
Yep. Man, did you see also Psychonauts 2?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Right, a VR
and
thing?
VR thing. Well, those are different.
They're two different things.
Yeah,
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. The Psychonauts VR is like a bridge story between 1 and 2, I think. And then Psychonauts 2 is like a full scale, just like
crazy,
just full on game.
Wow,
platformer, just a big game.
Man,
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
Psychonauts was the first game I ever worked on. I was a tester on that game.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so this is a cool thing to see.
Yeah,
that was before I even worked at Shack News.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
Cool.
All right.
On that note,
thank you for listening to Idle Thumbs. Thank you for listening to our weird tag team Idle Thumbs.
Yeah.
This
is episode 2 of whatever this variant is.
Oh yeah, we've done this once before.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this episode of Idle Thumbs, or if you enjoy the show as a whole, please tell a friend. It really means a lot to us. It seriously is like the absolute only way that we have to get the show out there. That is it. It is your word of mouth and nothing else. You can follow us on Twitter at Idle Thumbs. You can find our website at idlethumbs.net, which has a number of other shows we host, including the promise this is actually still coming, Idle Weekend with Rob Zachney and Danielle Riendo. They've done a few test episodes, and just various sort of life things and complications have kept the actual podcast from going up when we wanted it to. So really sorry about that, but it is still coming. They are still working on it. It will exist. Just keep listening to this podcast, and you will know as soon as it's ready to go. And you can email us your questions, comments, weird stories to questions@idlethumbs.net. And you can email questions and comments for Rob and Danielle at questions@idleweekend.net. So, yeah.
Also, maybe look out for a special 3MA podcast with me, Rob, and, oh God, I can't think of his name right now, but in any case, on Star Wars Rebellion. Which will
Are you guys
promise to
talking
be
about that
strange.
still?
Yeah, we're going to try and do it in like a week or so.
Oh, cool. So. Okay, so 3 Moves Ahead featuring Nick Breckon. Coming soon.
Talking about my favorite game. Another Star Wars tactical game.
Cool. All right. Well, that and all this other stuff is and will be at idlethumbs.net. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
What a svelte pop screen.
Yeah. Ooh. I like this package. Oh, crap.